What is up, guys? Alex here from Tech Inspected, coming to you with a full review of the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G. This is a mid-range smartphone from Samsung with very interesting specs. Now, rounding off first, the price is at 18,990 pesos up to 21,990. We have the highest end variant with 8 gigs of 256. This is expandable with microSD, dual SIM 5G, powered by an Exynos 1280 processor, which we will tell you about in just a bit because we do have some gaming tests. Gorilla Glass 5 protection on the Super AMOLED 90Hz 1080p display, which is actually very smooth and very nice that it's Super AMOLED. Now, we do have a quad camera setup on the back, 48 megapixel main with OIS, 8 megapixel ultra-wide, 5 megapixel macro, which is very surprising, and 2 megapixel depth. In front, we have a 13 megapixel selfie shooter and 5,000 milliamp hour battery with 25 watt fast charging. Runs Android One UI and actually got the update for Android 13. Very, very nice. Now, there's no headphone jack, but we do have dual stereo speakers. And I like this mid-range device from Samsung. They brought in some flagship features from their flagship phones. This has IP67 dust and water resistance, the hybrid dual speakers, the stereo speakers, and of course the optical image stabilization. So is this the mid-range for you? Let's check it out in our full review. Now, before we get to that, please like, comment, and subscribe. See you in the review. Alright, so this is what is included in the package of the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G. Most of it is just packaging, not a lot of accessories in the box. As you can see, the box is very, very thin. It actually is a very small little box right here. So what's included here? Well, packaging material, box, and just part of the box as well. We do have SIM ejector tool, Samsung Care paperwork, which is actually marketing paperwork, quick start guide paperwork, which is for the phone, a Type-C to Type-C cable for charging and data transfer, and of course we do have the phone itself. This is the awesome white color, which is actually quite nice. Now, as you can see, very, very lean package. Not a lot of accessories you do have to buy. For example, a case for yourself, a screen protector for yourself. It does not include a screen protector pre-installed. There's no headphones or included charger in the package, which is a bit of a bummer, but that is Samsung's new direction. So we'll have to respect it. Alright, so this is the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G, and we are looking at the 6.4-inch Super AMOLED display with a 90 Hz refresh rate. I believe it is a 2400 by 1080 display protected by Corning Gorilla Glass 5, which is actually not bad for this price point. We do have, the display is actually kind of flat, and I actually like that. Samsung has been going with flat displays now, and I do like that direction because it makes the screen even easier to navigate with the swiping gestures. Anyway, 6.4-inch display, it's a pretty nice display. We do have a chin here. Bezels are around, but the bezels are relatively thin. Even the chin is relatively thin. We have the 13 megapixel camera up here with the Infinity U cutout. And this is not a typical Infinity U with the tapered corners. This is a little bit more circular, semicircular. I don't mind. I do like that. It very much matches the edges of the display. Now, as I said, this is a Super AMOLED 1080p display. It's a nice looking display, though I do have some issues with it. Or not issues, but I'll talk about that later. This is a nice looking phone. As you can see, we have sort of gray edges here. And it feels and looks like a solid metal build, but it's actually not. It's plastic. At the back, we have the Samsung logo here, some IMEI information, and the camera bump, which has this little lip that I really like. It's sort of tapered and does not sort of scratch your finger when you're pulling it around there. We have 5 cameras here, or 4 cameras here. We do have a 48 megapixel with OIS, the main sensor, 8 megapixel ultra wide, 5 megapixel macro, and 2 megapixel depth sensor, and of course the LED flash. This awesome white color is matte on the back, and it actually is pretty nice. This is plastic, and as you can see, It picks up a little bit of your finger oils, but actually, this is a very attractive looking design for the phone. It's quite modern, quite minimalistic, and I really like it. Okay, up top we have the a pinhole for extra microphone, and we do have the card slot there, which is a hybrid slot, not a dedicated micro SD slot, but it is expandable through micro SD. Power button, volume rocker on the right side, and then at the bottom we have the speaker grill and the Type-C port for charging and data transfer, and another pinhole microphone. We have another speaker grill here up top for your calls, and actually that's a hybrid speaker which actually serves as the stereo speaker pair when you're using this phone. This has a in-display, under-display fingerprint scanner, which is actually quite appreciated. As you can see, it's a pretty fast fingerprint scanner, no complaints here. It, I believe, is an optical one, but I have no complaints. It runs pretty good. Okay, we're close up now on the Galaxy A33 5G on the right and the Z Fold 3 5G on the left, with our outer display on the Z Fold 3. Now, the reason why I'm showing you this is just a comparison of the displays, right? The Z Fold 3 is a dynamic AMOLED or something like that, whereas the A33 is a Super AMOLED. Now, there is just a tiny bit of coloration difference. These are both in the vivid color profile, and maybe you won't see it, maybe you are seeing it, but the A33 5G just has a slightly different color profile, in my opinion. In my opinion, the Z Fold 3 has better colors. Now, it gets even crazier when you turn off the vivid profile and go natural on both of these phones. And like I said, it probably is hard to see from the camera, but the natural color profile looks really dull on the A33 versus the Z Fold 3. The Z Fold 3, I run natural profile on the Z Fold 3 and it looks great, but the natural profile on the A33, it looks really dull. So I think there's just a minor difference in display quality. I know that makes absolute sense, but I just want to mention, because AMOLED as a standard, it's a very good thing, but you notice some differences here and there. The blacks on the A33 5G is just not black enough. Not black enough. That might be racist. And that might be one of the reasons why Samsung did not give the A33 5G an always-on display capability. The Z Fold 3 has always-on display. The A33 5G does not have always-on display. As you can see, the Z Fold 3 has more powerful speakers and a little bit more bass than the A33 5G. But honestly, the A33 5G pulls off some very good speaker performance, and I'm not going to complain. It's pretty good, but in a larger room, more louder environment, the Z Fold 3 5G permeates with more powerful speakers. In case I haven't mentioned, this is a new waterproof design, IP67. Well, it should be water resist is what it's called. IP67 doesn't water resist, which is quite nice for this level of mid-range phone. I don't think the competition are able to produce water-resistant phones in this price point. And even some flagships from other brands are not able to produce water-resistant and dust-resistant phones. So I do commend Samsung for having a solid build quality and nice-looking design, but also water-resistant. Alright, so this is the user interface of the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G, and as you would expect, it's running Android with a version of One UI. But let me just tell you, this is actually running Android 13 now with Samsung One UI 5.0. Why? Because I believe late November or early December, I got the Android 13 update for the A33 5G, which is one of the better things about Samsung phones these days, is that they have committed to a long update cycles for a lot of their devices, and getting Android 13 on a mid-range smartphone in 2022 is a great honor for a lot of Samsung products. And as you can see, Android 13 does not introduce a lot of changes, but some icons and stuff have changed, which is nice. Some extra features are included as well. But the main thing about Android 13 and One UI 5.0 or One UI from Samsung is that it is a very, very well-made ROM or very well-made skin of Android. As far as Android launchers go, this is the best in my opinion, and as you can see, it is quite smooth. Let's check out the unlocking procedures. Of course, we do have the built-in fingerprint scanner on the display, which runs pretty quickly. Not the instant effect that some higher-end brands have, but it's quick enough for me. Now let's try the face unlock. Very quick as well. And of course, you do have pin unlock and pattern unlock as you would need. So very quick unlocks on the user interface. Okay, so what do you get from Samsung when you first boot the Galaxy A33 5G? Well, there's not a lot of bloatware is what I would say. You do get Spotify, Netflix, Lazada, and Shopee pre-installed as essential apps. You can uninstall them. Microsoft apps are also there because Samsung has partnered with Microsoft to add their services. As you can see, this is your home screen or your app drawer when you first boot it. Has Netflix and whatnot. Most of these you can uninstall no problem. Shopee and Lazada are also included, and Samsung Global Goals, which I would normally uninstall. And some Google apps too, like Google Meet, which I uninstall. Widevine L1 support and Netflix works pretty well, no problem. As you can see, Microsoft sometimes gives you these ads. Not Samsung's fault, but Microsoft ads though. Our Antutu score is 419,000, which is very, very respectable and reflects really well with the user interface and the gaming performance, in my opinion. Our sensor suite is fully complete, as you can see, except for a temperature sensor and pressure sensor. And we do have a 10-point touch on the touchscreen. Battery life, I'll talk about that later. Alright, so like I mentioned before, there's no bloatware, no ads in the user interface. There is ads on the Google lock screen, which unfortunate because it didn't have ads before, but you know, Google needs to make money at some point. However, in these mid-range devices, you do get ads on the game launcher, which is unfortunate, bummer. Samsung also has a lot of ways where it asks you about if you want to receive marketing materials. I usually turn that off, but there's a lot of options there. Galaxy Store also has ads. Let's see if it launches one right now. So you can see ads over here do not show again, but it still shows those anytime you launch it. Either way, there's not a lot of ads. There's a lot of ways you can avoid ads in this user interface, and it doesn't, you know, force feed you ads and bloatware, which is great in this ROM. Now, you may have noticed as I was browsing the Galaxy A33 5G's user interface here, that the user interface of the Galaxy A33 5G is very, very smooth. Now, I mentioned that before, but as you can see, I'm switching apps here, and sometimes it takes a little while to load because it's not in memory yet, but the loading is very nice, and you know that it's loading, which is great because sometimes some phones, they just stutter before loading apps, but in this phone, you can see that I can load apps no problem. This has the 8 gigs of RAM, by the way, but I believe the 6 gigs of RAM will not have any problem here. And as you can see, multitasking in this phone is very, very, very good. My personal way to gauge the quickness and smoothness of the user interface on most phones is typing tests. You can see I can type very, very quickly without messing up. Well, I messed up one time, but it's not because of the touch response. A lot of phones have issues with touch response when I'm typing fast, but this has no problem, and that gives it a thumbs up improvement. All right, so let's talk about the gaming performance of the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G. Now, we tested this on 5 games, but don't worry, we will add some more games to test on our Extras channel. If you want to watch all the games that we tested, it is on the Extras channel, including in a playlist, okay? So, Call of Duty Mobile, we had a solid 60 FPS in pretty much 99% of the game. This was on low graphic setting, max FPS. Unfortunately, none of the games we tried can do 90 hertz, but I'm sure one of the games out there can do 90 hertz on this 90 hertz display. Unfortunately, none of the ones we tested, including Wild Rift. League of Legends Wild Rift was maxed at 60 FPS, could not pick 90 hertz display. But we did max out all the graphical settings, and Wild Rift ran at very, very good frame rates. I would say in average 55 FPS. At the worst, it's probably like 47 FPS during a huge 5v5 clash. But honestly, if you run at the highest settings, you will run League of Legends Wild Rift very, very well and very, very nicely. If you went with medium settings, you're serious about your fighting in League of Legends Wild Rift, then you will definitely enjoy full 60 FPS all the time. Now, PUBG Mobile, we couldn't get it more than 30 FPS. It's just that the game does not have a setting for more than that for this phone. But that being said, PUBG Mobile ran at 30 FPS, completely stable, no problems there. So it's very, very playable up until the end. We played like a 20-minute game of PUBG Mobile, no drop frames. Mobile Legends, we got a very high frame rate of about 55 FPS average. Limit is 60. We could not get 90 hertz on there. But it's a very, very strong competitor for Mobile Legends at very high settings. Okay, so now let's talk about Genshin Impact. Genshin Impact is a very demanding game, but Galaxy A33 5G with the 1280 Exynos processor can actually handle it quite well. I tried it on medium settings most of the time and it ran very well. It averaged more than 30 FPS most of the time in fighting, when you're fighting the Hilichurls or whatever they're called, in a fighting scenario with all of the effects going on. The lowest I can get at mid settings in a fighting scenario with all the effects going on is 27-ish FPS. You can definitely get away with even the highest settings at 60 FPS, but you should avoid like busy areas. So this is quite a good performance on the Exynos 1280 on the Galaxy A33 5G. Lastly, I did a throttle test for 15 minutes and the CPU throttled to 73% of its performance after 15 minutes, which is, I guess, respectable. Maybe below average, but respectable. All right, now let's get to the sort of meat and potatoes. I know gaming is sort of meat and potatoes for most phones these days, but also cameras are meat and potatoes for phones these days as well. So the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G has actually an impressive setup of cameras here. We got 4 sensors at the back, like I mentioned before, a 48 megapixel main sensor with OIS. I believe it also have face detection autofocus, I could be wrong. 8 megapixel ultra wide, 5 megapixel macro, and 2 megapixel depth sensor for the blurry portrait shots. Okay. Now, photos from the main sensor, which is the 48 megapixel with OIS, come out with 12 megapixels from the pixel binning, and they're punchy and detailed with good colors, as you would expect. This is Samsung after all, and this is what I expected and wanted from a Samsung phone. Very punchy colors, very crispy details in the images. Now, this usually also makes the reds a little bit too punchy. Sometimes you lose a little bit of detail because it is oversaturated, but generally a lot of people appreciate this kind of processing from Samsung, even me, okay? Talking about the ultra-wide sensor, we have 8 megapixels, which is very respectable as an ultra-wide camera. You can tell the photos are using the typical Samsung colors as well. However, the ultra-wide is just ever so slightly less saturated and even less low light capable, but still you can tell it's from the same camera. It's very good and very acceptable as an ultra wide, and it's very shareable. All right, so 5 megapixel macro shots are actually quite decent, very shareable, and very respectable. So I do commend Samsung for this macro sensor at 5 megapixels and didn't give us the cheap 2 megapixel macro sensors. It does require a lot of light, but once you get a good lighting situation and take that macro shot, it's pretty good. Now let's give a little bit of a comparison and give you a better idea of what the quality is from the A33 5G. I'm going to compare it with my Z Fold 3 5G, which is technically a flagship phone, but has, you know, not flagship cameras. And putting them side by side, the main sensor from the Z Fold 3 5G and the main sensor for the A33 5G, they're actually quite similar in quality. And that makes it so that I think these cameras are very, very decent from the A33 5G. Even the ultra-wide, the A33 maybe has a slightly darker tone on the ultra-wide, but honestly, you could probably pixel peep until the cows come home, and you will not see a lot of differences between the shots from the A33 5G and the Z Fold 3. Of course, the Z Fold 3 has, you know, maybe better video quality and whatnot. We'll talk about that in a bit. But overall, the A33 5G has a very good setup of cameras and very comparable to the Z Fold 3 that I own. All right, let's talk about the video quality that comes from the cameras of the Galaxy A33 5G, sorry. Now, you can shoot 4K 30 from the main sensor and the selfie camera, which is nice. However, you cannot turn on electronic image stabilization when you're shooting 4K. When you're shooting 1080p, you can turn on electronic image stabilization. From the main sensor though, 4K 30, you can turn on, the optical image stabilizer is active all the time, although it introduces the corner wobbling effect, which may or may not be good, but sometimes it's usable when you shoot 4K from the main sensor. The selfie 4K is actually pretty nice. Of course, the main sensor 4K, in my opinion, looks quite good. Not as crisp as you would say from a higher end flagship model 4K, but pretty usable. Now, without the EIS, the wobble effect from the main sensor and the selfie sensor is a little much, especially when you're walking. So I do suggest recording in 1080p for most of your video recordings. At 1080p, you can use zooming effects, or you can switch to ultra-wide camera and whatnot. So it's pretty good. Audio quality or microphone quality is also quite good. And in this price segment, unfortunately, we do not have a headphone jack, but we can plug in a USB microphone, which is quite common these days. So that is nice. I'm not a big proponent for a headphone jack anymore, just so I can vlog, because there's a lot of more affordable USB microphones these days. So not a problem anymore. They're wireless too. All right, let's talk about the battery life on the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G. Now, I get about 1.5 days to 2 days if you stretch it enough. We got a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, 25 watt fast charging. Unfortunately, no 25 watt charger in the box or any charger at all. But 1 to 2 days, or 1.5 to 2 days is my battery on this product. I get about 10.5 hours on Work 3.0 battery at half brightness on PC Mark, and I tried this playing Genshin Impact for 30 minutes at maximum Genshin Impact settings. It drained from 100% to 90%. So 30 minutes, 10% battery. Charging from 0% at 25 watt charger for 30 minutes, I got 51% battery. So pretty respectable charging speeds, as long as you have that 25 watt charger, which is not included in the box. All right, let's talk about the value you get from the product, the Galaxy A33 5G. This comes in 3 variants, 18,990 for the 128 gig. This variant is 8256, the baller variant, 21,990. So it revolves around $400 US price point. I think it's pretty good. The competition is fierce at 20,000 peso price point, but not a lot of phones have optical image stabilization in this price point. Not even some of the higher end ones. Not a lot of phones have IP67 water and dust resistance in this price point as well. So those are some good things about the Samsung A33 5G. You also get dual hybrid speakers, although some companies, some manufacturers also produce dual speakers these days for this price point. Now, the processor on this is definitely mid-range. You could do better than this from other brands, but honestly, this package is pretty good overall because of the IP67, because of the dual speakers and the optical image stabilization. We have a 90 Hz AMOLED display. Like I said before, the display could be better. The quality of the display could be better, and it could be 120 Hz or more. You know, 120 Hz is getting more standard these days. And some devices actually come with 120 Hz cheaper than this. So those are some, you know, value-related things that we need to mention. It does come with 5G, dual 5G, and, you know, cameras are good, gaming is good, battery life is good. No headphone jack though, but a lot of people use Bluetooth headphones these days. So I do like that, but unfortunately it doesn't come with a case, it doesn't come with a charger in the box, doesn't come with headphones in the box, doesn't come with a screen protector pre-installed, which is like, come on, give me a screen protector, please. All right, so connectivity on the Galaxy A33 5G, pretty excellent as well. We got dual 5G capabilities. 5G speeds are excellent. 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi AC as well, so you know, download speeds and whatnot from your Wi-Fi is excellent. You can also stream videos and whatnot from your PC or whatever to this. Very smooth. Bluetooth 5.1 is supported, and Wi-Fi and Bluetooth speeds are very good. 5G speeds are very good as well. Call quality is also good. The only thing I would say is there's no headphone jack, and the USB-C does not support display out of any kind because Samsung saves that for their flagship phones, unfortunately, but that is to be expected. A lot of phones do not have video out from their displays, from their Type-Cs anyway. All right, we reached the end of the video. Conclusion time on the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G. Well, consider my mind changed about the Exynos 1280 processor that Samsung put into this thing. It's actually an excellent processor, it turns out. And the Galaxy A33 might be the low-key best mid-ranger, in my opinion, for a lot of consumers. Now, that's because I really like a lot of the upper type features here, the IP67 waterproof, optical image stabilization, and dual hybrid speakers, the Super AMOLED 90 Hz display, I don't know if I mentioned before. But the gaming performance, the cameras are really great. The gaming performance is up above average. Not the same as like gaming phones out there, but it's still very, very good. Now, software update is also very good on this. Android 13 now on this guy. I wonder if we're going to get Android 18. She's going to break our arm like she did on Vegeta. I don't know. But Android 13 with One UI 5 and future updates also. So that's a great thing. So if you can sort of ignore the fact that I mentioned the display is sort of off color and has no always on display, then there's really nothing much to complain about. Speakers also not being full body, it's just a hybrid speaker system, not a real dual speaker system. Not gonna be huge problems there. The A33 turns out to be a really good pick for users, even who are users that are used to flagship devices, like me. Just make sure to buy a case and a screen protector, because it doesn't have any. Anyway, that's it for me. Alex from Tech Inspected here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!